to begin our last speaker tonight, Pete Smith. You are quantum consciousness. He is going to be speaking. Everyone can take a seat. Thank you. All right, we're moving beyond time and space as we know it. We can access other realms or consciousness and explore the true multidimensional nature of who we are. We can access alternate realities, parallel lives, and our interdimensional consciousness. Pete Smith will share the philosophy and background behind his work and where it contributes to the shift of consciousness for humanity. His book, Quantum Consciousness: Journey Through Other Realms, documents the philosophies, the methodologies, and case studies behind the quantum consciousness experience. An out-of-body journey that embraces alternate realities, parallel lives, and interdimensional consciousness. He was president of the Michael Newton Institute and now serves as an advisory capacity for matters regarding Michael's legacy. He is a contributing author of Memories of the Afterlife, The Little Book of LBL, and Wisdom of Souls. And he founded the Institute of Quantum Consciousness to embrace the synchronicities between some of the core principles of quantum physics and expanded states of awareness. For more information, you can go to his website at instituteforquantumconsciousness.com. And without further ado, Pete Smith.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
We can hear you great.
You know, the first thing you're going to notice is an accent. And this is an affliction that used to come up for me when I'd travel. But now it seems to have made itself onto Zoom as well. So it's nice to be with you. And I want to be talking to you a lot today about the fluidity of time and space. And let me offer you a great example of that. Because I'm coming to you from Sunday. Okay? For me, it's 9 a.m. Sunday morning. Okay, for me, I'm heading into summer. And technically, I'm in the Southern Hemisphere. So that means, as far as you're concerned in terms of space, for most of you that are in the Northern Hemisphere, I'm standing upside down. So that means that my crown is pointing to a whole different part of the universe than what yours is. So if I look at the diversity of who we are, and I'm going to talk about the fluidity of time and space today, and that it's not really how we see it, but it's more of a construct. And I'm going to quote some great people who feel the same way. We're going to share a lot of information. Then we're going to have a little experiential. I'm going to offer you where you can find some resources to further work with this work as well. And really, my role today is to help you to understand your magnificence, to help you know that there's so much more to you than what you could ever possibly have imagined in this human form. So I have some slides to show. I'm a big believer in pictures. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but I think it's what the picture offers you that goes beyond the words that really makes the difference. So I'm going to start with a screen share, and we'll move into some of these slides. And that in the background you can see is a portal to your magnificence. We all know that something is going on this planet. There's an awakening taking part that we all came here to be part of. And that's such a beautiful thing. And courageous souls turn up in these times. So my first message to you is thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this incredible awakening. And we look at where science is at, and we look at spirituality, consciousness. Part of my role over the last many years has been to look for the overlaps but I no longer see them as overlaps. I'll speak more about that in a moment. Let's start with quantum physics, the science of possibilities. Okay, Lynn talked a lot about possibility in the quantum field as well. But when we go beyond these bodies and we go into the subatomic realm, things don't behave the way we see them in this macro way of being. We start to talk about other realities. We scientifically confirm other dimensions exist. And these atoms of which we're made are supposedly empty, or maybe we just think they are. Maybe they're full of the possibilities of what we bring into this lifetime. But Newtonian physics has given way to a revolution in quantum physics where they still don't have all the answers, but they're starting to ask a lot of the really good questions. And all of it is based on the assumption that the more we explore the universe, the more we find how little we actually know about it. But quantum physics is opening new places for us. And then we talk about spirituality. Okay, if we talk about spirituality, the energy of the universe, how many times have you heard it said that we are spiritual beings having a human experience? We all do our best to live that as much as we can, but we did come here to be human. So it's okay to have some very human days because that's part of the experience of being here as well. So spirituality has lots of connotations around it. It's been caught up in religion, in philosophy. Some people who read a lot of spiritual documents see themselves as spiritual. We know there's doctrine out there as well. So spirituality is starting to have a bit of this overlap with quantum physics. And there's something about the energy of the universe that this spirituality makes up. But I want to redefine that because you can see in those two pictures, there's a little bit of overlap between the science of possibility and the energy of the universe in terms of the spirituality definition. But if we take spirituality out and we put consciousness in and we move energy into consciousness, something very different happens. I believe that everything is energy. You'll get the same from a quantum physicist as you will from a Reiki master. The universe is made up of energy. So on this incredible infrastructure of energy, we are based here as walking and awareness-based consciousness. So whereas energy is the infrastructure of the universe, it's consciousness that brings it to life. And when we take the science of possibility and we take the lifeblood of the universe itself and we put these together, we get quantum consciousness. You are a unique collection of subatomic particles powered by consciousness itself. It was Greg Braden who first said something like that. This is who you really are. You know, quantum physics tells us that we are limitlessness in action. Consciousness knows no bounds. So you are a walking and talking example of quantum consciousness. This is simply who you are, but no one's ever told you. Because if you truly knew who you were, then this planet would have to change in ways that are so remarkable that most of the people wouldn't be able to cope. So that's why you have an awakening and you have a gradual awakening of things that start to emerge. We're emerging as a species, as a collective consciousness, however you want to look at it, something of significance is changing. You know, many, many years ago, there wouldn't be a conference like this one because we'd all get in trouble and we'd all get locked up. But we are evidence of that awakening because we're all here together creating our own collective consciousness as we learn these beautiful thoughts and ideas that are setting us all free from an old world. We're here to create a new one. Okay. So let's start at the beginning. Einstein. Let's do some quotes from Einstein. 5 little pieces of wisdom. You know, he's an amazing guy, Einstein, and he wasn't quite into the quantum revolution originally, but he got into it in time, and he came to understand some of its principles and link into them as his own thoughts evolved. Somebody once said to me, I really wanted to do, back in the old days, someone was trying to do an interview with Einstein's hairdresser, and they found it to be impossible because he just didn't have one. But anyway, so let's look at some of these great quotes of his. This one on the left here. Time is an illusion. I've already proved that by turning up here at 9 a.m. on my Sunday morning. Look, I missed the first speaker at 3 a.m., strangely. But time is fluid. Time is not as we see it to be, even within, the USA where this is based. I mean, you've got about 4 separate time zones. I've got 3 in my country. I mean, this is how it is. Europe, different time zone again. Try having a Zoom call with some people that you're working with in Europe and America and Australia at the same time, and you'll know what I mean. Time is far more fluid than what we realise. But it forms a really helpful construct because it prevents everything from happening at once. And that was Einstein's definition on that. So what it does is it allows incarnated learnings to have a pretend time frame so that we can process with our human mind the experiences that we have along the way. And this third quote that I really love, I'm going to read these to you in case it's too small on the screen there. But time and space are not conditions in which we live, but modes by which we think. So there it is. It's contextual. Time and space, as we'll see shortly, are both contextual, and they're powered by our own consciousness as we project it into those ways in which we think. This fourth quote, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. I mean, how does that sit with reincarnation? It's actually quite a clever validation. The fact that we may live many times outside of time and space. So this linear construct of our soul lineage, perhaps that too is a construct and everything is happening at once. And then Einstein said as well that energy is everything. That's the infrastructure of the universe. And that that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. When somebody says, take me to the source of this past life where I have a fear of heights, strangely, you go there. And he talked about, the analogy of the radio dial. If you set the radio dial, you change the frequencies, and it's like, we've all seen those old radios. And we change the dial, and a new frequency comes in. Our existences across time and space are like those frequencies. As we change the radio dial, we pull in a different signal. I love a quote by Bruce Lipton. I'm sure you're fans of Bruce Lipton, many of you as well. He said, looking for consciousness in the brain is like looking inside the radio for the announcer. And we are a radio box, and we can pull in so many more different frequencies. All we need to do is adjust the dial. In these 5 quotes from Einstein, we have a working model of reincarnation emerging that is outside of time and space. And for us in our quantum consciousness work, we see this as realms of parallel consciousness. Many of you will have done past life work or practitioners yourself. You know that when somebody goes to that time in the Colosseum as the gladiator and they're being killed by their opponent, they're not saying, hey, this happened to me 2,000 years ago, and I remember that day the guy hit me with the spear. They're in it. They're on the ground. They're feeling the spear go into their body. They're feeling the trauma of their body letting go of spirit. They feel what it's like to float above that body. Same with any of the past life work. We travel across time and space. We go to that frequency and we understand that particular memory that is embedded in the overall consciousness of who we are. So further proof that everything is happening at once. That's what we do in past life work. So we see these as realms of parallel consciousness. And what I'm doing is I'm building some mindsets that will offer us a model shortly. So let's remember that one. The multiverse. These decision points in the timeline that create other realities. Hollywood has picked this up. That great old movie Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow. That was a great encapsulation of what happens if we go in these two directions and how are the two connected. Well, we're quantumly entangled with our other selves that go on those other paths. But this whole concept of the multiverse started back in the old days with a guy called Hugh Everett, who wrote a paper in 1957. And it was his dissertation for his PhD. And one of his supervisors for that dissertation was John Wheeler, who was one of the greatest quantum physicists we know. And he knew Einstein, he knew Bohr, he knew all of those guys from the old days. Very, very powerful fellow. And he supervised this work of Everett. Everett postulated that rather than the wave function collapsing into a reality that we then observe, he postulated that it continues on in its superposition into all of these different realities, and the one we collapse through our own observation is only one reality of many. At the time, he really upset the world of quantum physics, and they thought he was a very strange person to be writing such a paper. But by the time he died, he was hailed a genius. So the many worlds interpretation, it starts to explain contents of quantum mechanics and the appearance in the world, because he talked about the fluidity of time and particularly space as these other realities started to form. People started to talk about doppelgangers, started to talk about other realities. But the beauty of that is we are quantumly entangled. Before that split in the timeline, before the many worlds interpretation came into being, the multiverse emerged, we were connected into one lot of these subatomic particles before we went in two directions. Beauty of that is that we can contact them. So in our modeling, we started to build realms of alternate consciousness, and we started to build other versions of ourselves to obtain information, to receive advice, to understand the background behind a decision that we've made. Okay, one more piece. When we go down below the subatomic level, we said, well, what are the subatomic particles themselves made of? This is where the theory of string theory came in. And a lot of people saw it as more of a philosophy. But everyone started to embrace this idea that these tiny little vibrating strings could be stretched out into something much larger as well, but it gave a fluidity to what happens underneath it. The problem was 5 different guys came up with a version of string theory. So some sort of collective consciousness going on there as everybody's exploring this rabbit hole. A guy by the name of Ed Witten, he started to talk about the fuzziness from quantum uncertainty, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which you may or may not have heard of. But basically what they've discovered was that if they could measure the velocity of a subatomic particle, they had trouble getting its mass. If they could get its mass, they had trouble tracking its velocity. They even found some of these particles wink in and out of existence as they're trying to measure them. So there was this incredible, unexpected fuzziness that was happening when we started to look below the level of subatomic particles, and string theory was designed to try and answer some of those questions. But 5 versions of them came together. But in 1995, Ed Witten brought those 5 versions of string theory together into what came to be known as M theory. And he did that by adding an extra dimension. Okay, he went from 10 dimensions in the mathematics and the way it was assembled to 11. By adding that extra dimension, it brought all 5 of those versions of string theory into one overall theory. It was Stephen Hawking himself who said that he thought string theory was as close as anything to being the theory of everything. So what Witten did by adding all these other dimensions, and if I talk about 11 dimensions for a moment, okay, up and down is one, left and right is another, back and forward is three-dimensional reality, add time in there as a fourth dimension, there's another 7, according to the mathematics that he put together in that theory. But what he mathematically proved through doing that was that realms of interdimensional consciousness exist. Okay, so if we look at Einstein, we look at Everett, we look at Witten, we look at the many worlds, we look at string theory or M theory in its super form. If we look at the theory of relativity that Einstein had when he proved to us that time and space is less fluid than we thought, we start to build a model that allows us to understand that other dimensions are out there, other realms of consciousness exist, and that we can take them further. Okay. When we put quantum consciousness together, we took 4 of the leading philosophies of quantum physics, the observer effect, and you may know from the double slit experiment, they discovered that people who actually watch an experiment intrude upon it. Okay, so you can't have separation between somebody objectively doing an experiment. They will actually affect it just by observing it. So the observer effect is a well-known phenomenon. Non-locality refers to the fact that everything exists in its possibilities. The electrons that we were taught at school with those lovely little orbits around the nucleus of an atom, they say now it more exists in a cloud of possibilities, that atom, until it collapses through the observation of the world, of the wave function. It collapses into one particular reality or heads off in the multiverse, if we embrace that theory. But everything appears to be non-local. There doesn't appear to be anything in its existence in the here and now until such time as the wave function collapses. Quantum entanglement. When 2 particles form a relationship, they are forever joined, and you can move them thousands of miles away, and you move one and the other one shifts. You move it back and the other one shifts back. So entanglement is a well-known phenomenon that underpins the universe. Einstein actually referred to it as spooky action at a distance. And the whole concept of the holographic universe is that the large and the small echo each other, that there's always a piece of everything in the small. Okay? If you look at iridology, for example, and the sections of the eye, all of them relate to the different bodies. Reflexology. Again, if you look at the pieces of the hand, all of them refer to different body organs. So we see examples of the holographic universe in daily life all the time. So if you take those 4 concepts of quantum physics and you add consciousness to them, the observer effect becomes the creator effect. We heard Lynn talk a lot about manifestation, intention, etc. The creator effect carries that energy where we don't just observe something, we affect it. So that gives us incredible power as creators. If everything is non-local, then we're in our every-awareness. We're not bound by time and space. Our consciousness is transportable because it permeates the universe itself. We simply need to bring our awareness to one particular place. I've called this entanglement because there are other versions of ourselves that we are connected to. We have a soul energy that covers all of the landscape in which our consciousness resides in every realm. And we are quantumly entangled with the other aspects of us, and they become our resources beyond time and space in other realms, and we can access them. And holographic healing, when I first did past life work many, many years ago, and I started off as a hypnotherapist and more a facilitator of consciousness these days, and have moved outside the realms of hypnotherapy rather than go down into trance. We tend to take people out of their bodies, more like an out-of-body experience. But holographic healing, I found early in the piece that if you had somebody with a pattern in the lineage of their soul, we could call in all of those other events from across their soul lineage. If they'd had 20 lives of religious persecution, for example, we could call all 20 in, we could help them heal and send them back across time and space. So the large and the small has great power when it comes to utilizing the universe itself. Okay, so this is the, if you like, the 4 elements of quantum consciousness that we've been using. And this little piece down the corner is just a bit of fun. We have to change our present consciousness. Remember, people have always said you can't solve the problems at the same consciousness as how they were created. Another Greg Braden quote, and based on something that Einstein once said. So we have to change the way our present consciousness exists. Then we bring in these 4 elements of quantum consciousness, and then we move into our expanded states of awareness. And that's what we've been calling the quantum consciousness experience. When I talk about expanded states of awareness, we have to move and expand beyond this human form, beyond our human intellect, beyond any defense mechanisms that we hold in our mind, beyond our sense of self in this. We need to move out into a universe that allows us the freedom to be able to look at things from outside the body. Those of you who have studied or even had a near-death experience will know the power of moving the consciousness outside the body and looking back. It's an incredible part of exploration that we've been offering our people for a while now. Okay, so here's the model that we came up with. And this is the model that we use in the quantum consciousness experience. It starts here with our present consciousness that we change. We take people out of their body, we take them into a state of being that transcends time and transcends space. And as we move them out of their present consciousness, which remains their anchor point, because this wonderful portal that we're using for our clients, we're still speaking to our client, but we're speaking through our client about our client. I'll explain more about that in a moment. First realm we started to look at, and we would journey through these realms or to any in particular who come forward. Stored consciousness may hold incredible things in this timeline that we do know now. We may speak to a 5-year-old and, we always think, oh, inner child work, childhood trauma, 5-year-olds coming forward. In this out-of-body type experience, a 5-year-old might come forward to remind us to have fun, to remind us what it was like before you had a world of responsibility. These are the frequencies that I'm carrying, and I've come across time and space to remind you. I've had many meetings with younger versions of me, with older versions of me. I've had great wisdom offered from people who are ahead in my timeline, different cases that we've documented in the books. So what we find is that we have incredible resources here that we forget about. They might come from the future. They might form advice. They might come from the past. They might be reminders of things that have happened. We will occasionally have a version of ourselves that comes forward that simply wishes to transcend that which they've been trying to deal with across time and space, and we do that for them. So rather than look for trauma, we create a beautiful safe space where aspects of us can come forward in the interest of healing or the sharing of wisdom. That all happens in our stored consciousness realm. Alternative consciousness, this is our multiverse. This is where we've come to that fork in the road and we've gone in 2 directions. How did I go on the other half of that decision? I made this decision, but what would have happened if I'd gone the other way? These are the things that we explore through the multiverse, through the alternate consciousness. We can find ways that we can either learn from 2 versions. Of course, the intention that we set for any of these aspects of us that come forward that we speak to, the intention we set is that both go away in a higher vibration. If someone comes forward and wants to share something, they feel good about sharing, we walk away with the wisdom. If they wish to heal, we hold space for them while they surrender something out to the universe they no longer need. We feel that we've served them. They offer us gratitude. They go away healed. So all of these different versions of us, this work is undertaken in a higher perspective with that intention. Alternate consciousness, there's a part of me, let me say that I had a banking career once. I see myself as a reformed banking executive in the old days, 20 years back. There's, in the alternate consciousness, when I started some of this experimental work myself, and we were the original test crash dummies, if you like, I went to a reality where I'd stayed in corporate life. I'd forgone the work that I came here to do. I had stayed small and in a corporate structure that was no longer fueling my soul. And I saw myself have a brain aneurysm on the way to work. And I observed as that part of me fell over on the train in peak hour, and people tried to help me, but I saw my spirit leave my body. And that was another timeline to the one that I'm on. I'm pleased to say that I'm now older in this timeline than I was in that one when I left. So these are the aspects of us that can come forward in this work. That was offered to me as a wake-up call. It's not normally that heavy type of energy, but that was for me to know that I'd made the right decision. And that soul got to go home to a beautiful place as well. Parallel consciousness, we've already talked about the concept of other lifetimes, us in other bodies, as our consciousness is in a different time, in a different place. The first time I had a client who told me that their next incarnation was going to be in the Middle Ages, I was forced to surrender my linear time because they were outside of time and space. So I'm going to go back to the 1200s for my next incarnation. And I had a client with me at that time in the chair who was here in the 2000s. So time and space is fluid once we move out of the construct of time and space that Einstein discussed. So parallel consciousness is there, it's alive and well, and that too has great ways for us to explore. Interdimensional consciousness, where do we go when we're not in human form? And one of the pieces of research that I want to speak to you about in a little while actually draws on that theme, that we can incarnate in different forms. Our consciousness can reside in other dimensions and in other types of bodies. And I'll show you some research on that shortly. But the piece that we carry with us always is our eternal consciousness. Call it soul, call it connection to source, whatever you want to call it. But this model represents the fluidity of these different waves as they move out through the different frequencies of these different versions of ourselves. We can see the eternal consciousness. It's highlighted in white there, but these little black pieces are with us every step of the way, embedding in our consciousness. Okay. So that's the quantum consciousness experience model that we've been using. Okay, so how do we do it? Well, we have a very simple questioning cycle. We don't chase trauma. We look for the greater purpose behind everything. We feel that everything that's ever happened to us is a construct by us in collaboration with something greater than ourselves. What have we come here to learn? First thing we do is we set a high vibrational intention, maybe to discover my magnificence, to be the best version of me that I can be, to undertake my purpose with nothing in the way. That's our radio dial. Okay, so anything that comes forward in these journeys must fit with the radio dial because that's what we've set before we leave. The other tool that we use is we'll often ask, we'll talk to our client about themselves in the third person. Okay, so we will say something, Carol, I'll use you as an example. What's the greater purpose of this being shown to Carol? Okay, how will life, now that we know this, how will life be forever changed for Carol? And how does this support Carol's intention to be the best that she can be? When we ask third-person questions, we allow the client to stay in that expanded out-of-body consciousness while they speak about the client that is with you. Okay. And it starts off very simply. We use tell me more a lot because every time you say tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, the client expands further into their magnificence. We might say who's come forward, how do they present, what do they offer or seek, what do you wish to offer in return? Those are the questions that we navigate the different souls that come forward, but it's these big questions that hold the gold. And that's how we facilitate our journeys that come out of the quantum consciousness experience. And we use this methodology too with our universal consciousness work, which is picked up where quantum left off. That's all very complicated. So let me make it really simple. A simple model of the universe, you might have your own. You don't need mine, but I'm just trying to simplify and touch base here in a way that helps us to understand not only are we incredibly complex and magnificent, but it all can be offered very simply as well. Everything in the universe has a vibration. Those vibrations emit frequencies. And we have free will on how we read those frequencies. Let me give you an example. Client might be heavily activated in fear. The frequencies that they send forward are either fight or flight, anger or anxiety, if you like. But we would see that anger or we would see that anxiety as a request for resonance. And when we find the greater purpose behind it, we undertake a process of transcendence. That means we transcend that need to be safe by taking that person out of their body and helping them understand they already are. Now, that vibration could be any one of many human emotions. It could be a physical injury. It could be a desire to explore their cosmic heritage. It could be something in their ancestral lines. These are all the different types of experiences that we offer under the universal consciousness banner. But our role is to help that client transcend, to move back into resonance. I believe that everything in the universe seeks resonance, seeks to be the best that it can possibly be. Source will divide into individual cells so that we can learn more, so that when we come back together, all of those cells return home. There is more known than what there was before. We take these paths back towards resonance through various forms of transcendence, but it all depends on how we see the vibration. What's the greater purpose behind things? Why is it being shown to this client? How did we set this up before we came here? If we start to take this simple view of the universe, we can breathe a sigh of relief to know that everything is guided by something greater than ourselves, and we are part of that. Okay. So, how do we shift the consciousness of humanity? After all, isn't that what we came here to do? Isn't that what we're part of? Isn't that the wave? The shift of consciousness, and aren't we all particles in that wave, doing our one thing differently from everybody else? But when we put all of the particles of who we are as a group of awakening beings into one wave, we can serve humanity and we can bring others with us who are ready to hear these messages as well. For me, the way to shift the consciousness of humanity is through both personal experience, because once you have one of those transcendent experiences, you sit at a different frequency in the universe itself. You sit in something that is very different from what you have before. And when you quantumly entangle with others, you give them permission to do the same. So never undertake the power of your personal experience. But to get somebody to undertake one of those personal experiences, we sometimes need robust research. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to offer you 3 pieces of research that I've been involved in that helps to echo the shift of consciousness that we're going through, and give them to you with a bit of detail on where you can get more information. I'm just going to give a snapshot of these 3 pieces, but I'll let you know where you can go to find out more. As you know, I'm a member of the Michael Newton Institute. I currently sit on the advisory board, the leading group for that organisation. I was president for about 10 years until we changed our structure and moved to more of a board type capacity than just a presidential role, because the organisation just got too big. When I retired as president, my job went into 4 different roles. So we looked at the events of the last few years, and everybody has their own personal experience of the COVID-19 phenomenon. And we recognised that and we understood that, what we thought our role was at the Newton Institute. And let me just define our role as the Newton Institute, and if you haven't heard of Michael Newton's work. Michael worked out where you could take people between their incarnations. Where do we go between these different lifetimes outside of time and space? And he mapped the spiritual realm, a place of higher consciousness where we plan and debrief each lifetime. And we have a sweeping view across the lineage of our soul in those places. We have contact with spiritual guides, spiritual councils, a world of energy and unconditional love. And he taught us to take clients into a space where they leave an incarnation, they cross over into the spiritual realm, and we can ask questions about this lifetime here. Okay, he did 7,000 cases before he published his first couple of books, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. From that time, his quantity of cases has been reproduced 10 times over by members of the Michael Newton Institute, currently up to about 75,000 cases of people who visited the afterlife to understand more about themselves. Okay, that's the background snapshot of the Newton Institute. I'll give more details on where you can look at that work later on. We went into a piece of research. We took 25 of our own people into the superconscious state, outside time and space, back in the spiritual realm, speaking from their superconscious mind. And we asked them a series of questions. And one of those questions was, what is the greater purpose behind the what's the greater purpose behind the COVID-19 phenomenon, and why is it coming to Earth? The exact question, what does the spiritual realm tell us about these times, the pandemic, its purpose and effect on our world? We came out with 5 themes. That first one, the break, I'm going to quote from one of our transcripts. I'll give you 5 quotes for these 5 particular pieces. First one that came out was the breakdown of old paradigms and structures. Here's the quote. Imagine a table covered with debris. The virus comes along with a sweeping arm and clears the table completely. Now it has nothing on it. It is like this. Humans are being asked, what do you want to put back on the table and what do you want to leave behind? Work together. It gets done more quickly. Okay. The second one was fear brings awakening, dissolving the karmic cycle. Here's a quote. The pandemic brings up fears of dying and of lack. So the pandemic is providing an opportunity for healing old traumas. The pandemic is to bring about fear that results in change. It was brought in by the shadow, but the light always wins. Okay. The third, awakening to a higher consciousness. Here's the quote. It's like an entangled wave of consciousness. It's like a movement that happens. You show one person where their light switch is, and they find it, and they want to show others where their light switch is. To teach the people who teach the people where their switches are, that's the shift. And that's how you change a particle into a wave. Okay, that fourth one about the web of life, Mother Earth and the new Earth. Here's the quote. Humanity is awakening and there is so much of the energy coming from within the Earth herself that is pushing up through us because she wants to bring us with her. Okay. And that fifth one, the transcendence to love, compassion, connection to spirit. Seems like there are many, many lights. There are lights all over our planet and a lot of beings who care. It's like a test of consciousness. Just be open, trust. If we focus on those we seek help from and ask for their help, they will come to us. It is up to us to want that communion. There's a bond if we want it. So the higher power is within our grasp. This piece of research was published formally through the Psychological Journal for Humanistic Psychology in the UK. It was published also in Nexus magazine that has a big distribution both in Australia and overseas. Contact me for a copy of that article or you'll find it on my website. And there's a full article. I want to mention that it was co-authored by my dear friend, Dr. Patricia O'Malley, who passed not long after we published it. So, she ran our Michael Newton Institute research team for some time. So we co-published that document together. So, if you want to know more, let me know. Second piece of research comes from Dr. Serena Volari. This was her PhD dissertation, and it was done in conjunction with the Michael Newton Institute. It was called The Psychological Impact of Spiritual Transcendence, a study of afterlife consciousness via Life Between Lives Hypnotherapy. Her supervising her as a doctorate candidate were 2 people. One was Dr. Matthew McKay from the Wright Institute in Berkeley. He's an author. He's published many, many books on psychology. He was the one that helped her steer this piece of work in collaboration with Dr. Diana Paik, who's the executive director of the Michael Newton Institute. So two very powerful people steering this research. So this was Serena's doctoral thesis. what she did was she measured 31 study participants that came through 10 of the Life Between Lives facilitators of the Michael Newton Institute. She measured before they'd done a Life Between Lives session to the in-between versus after. The average age of candidates was 46 years old. The range was 28 years to 76 years, 68% female. Half of the candidates were in the United States and half were in Europe. So the bottom line was, does LBL improve somebody's quality of life? Now, she used a number of psychological, well-known psychological measures, 5 under psychological well-being, 1 under spiritual well-being, and 2 under life purpose. They were measuring statistically measuring the scale. Variable was depression, anxiety, fear of death, resilience, psychological inflexibility, spiritual connectivity, presence of meaning of life, and search for meaning of life. So you can see that this is a quote from that doctoral thesis. Psychological well-being will increase for participants after they experience Life Between Lives hypnotherapy, an increase in the presence of meaning of life, spiritual experience and resilience, a decrease in the fear of death, depression, anxiety, the search for the meaning of life, and psychological inflexibility. So I'll quote one more piece from this. One primary takeaway from these results is that the phenomenological experience of afterlife consciousness, rather than the belief in it alone, okay, is a driver of positive psychological change. Okay, it's not enough to believe in the afterlife, it doesn't change your life, but when you experience it for yourself, that's what really makes the difference. Okay, again, if you want to get in touch with me, I can put you in touch with Serena if you want to know more about her work. Okay, a third piece of robust research, and this was one that I undertook myself. I mentioned the interdimensional consciousness earlier, and we took people through the quantum consciousness experience. These are cases, 111 cases, done by 33 different facilitators that are trained. And their idea there was, where do people go when they move through the realm of interdimensional consciousness? Where is it that they go? Of the 111 cases, 80% of the candidates went to the experience of contact with an off-world being. They went to a pure energetic state. They had a direct experience of being another type of life form, or they received some sort of metaphoric message. That last one, I believe, was because that was the best way for them to integrate the information that they were given, because we all know spirit loves to use metaphor. Okay. So there were 2 major findings, those first 2 dot points now. The third one gives you the scope of the experiences. Those first 2 are major findings with some sub-findings. The landscape of the universe beyond our physical existence here embraces energy and light, and it is within our reach. Okay, so we found that, supporting that, we found that we can take someone beyond their body under the quantum consciousness experience to embrace metaphysical experiences. We found that there was a relationship between the client's needs here in human form and what their experience was. It's like the universe was responding to their intention and what they most needed. And this is a big one. There is life on other planets, and sometimes it may be us in other incarnational forms. Okay, because that's where a lot of these people went. And the fourth one is, we can contact off-world civilizations without using physical contact. And if you've had anything to do with the off-world industry, it's not so much the UFO industry anymore, but anyone who's had any work with the off-world thing, you would know that already. Usually when I get to this point, I refer people to a book by Howard Beatty, who's on our Zoom call today. It's called the ET Speak, and that clearly articulates that off-world contact. The second one here, we are offered an experience that we can understand and integrate. In fact, the universe speaks our language. The universe wants us to know about our transcendent states. It collaborates with our out-of-body experiences in order to put us in touch with something more than ourselves. We found that metaphor and analogy enables the integration of experiences during expanded states of awareness. It's like the universe is trying its very best to interpret to us through metaphor, through analogy, and through personal experience that we are so much more than we believe ourselves to be. We also found that the natural world is used as a powerful messenger for clients. People saw waterfalls, they saw puppies with unconditional love. They were given messages visually that allowed them to experience frequencies for their own healing. And finally, we see the breakdown of time and space as we know it, showing the universe to be more metaphysical in nature than we realise. Okay, I've just put a lot to you. There's a copy of the interdimensional one. There's a copy of that research paper on the website, which I'll show you at the end. There's also a copy of the superconscious article that we wrote, and I have Serena's contact details. I don't want to speak too much to her work because I think she's the expert in that. So all of that's available if you want to know more. Okay. There's a lot of great organisations who are doing research into consciousness. The Institute of Noetic Sciences are doing incredible work. If you look at the Global Consciousness Project, for example, where they've got those random number generator machines set up around the world to track hits in the collective consciousness, the Earth's magnetic field, Schumann resonance, that type of phenomenon is being tracked. The HeartMath Institute, there's now starting to tell us that the brain takes instructions from the heart, not the other way around, but they're doing incredible work as well. The Monroe Institute, if you know Robert Monroe's books, Far Journeys, other ones, the Hemisync type stuff, the out-of-body things that Monroe started, his whole institute is doing some great work as well. He was very much a researcher in the early days. University of Virginia, I'm sure many of you have heard of Ian Stevenson's work originally. That's now run by Jim Tucker, the Division of Perceptual Studies, as it's called, DOPS, as part of the University of Virginia. They're doing some great work there as well. Jim Tucker's written a whole lot of books. Stevenson wrote a whole lot before him. We've actually sent our people from the Michael Newton Institute there to present to them and collaborate a little as well. Of course, Lynn will love this one. ARE, the work that they're still pulling out of Edgar Cayce's readings is phenomenal. They're still publishing books every year. They've got their own publishing wing. Edgar Cayce's wisdom is continuing to serve us in these times. So they're doing some great work and some great publications. And of course, the Michael Newton Institute, which I've already mentioned. We've sent some of our people to the ARE as well to get some ideas from them about how to run a spiritual organisation. Okay, it's a busy slide and there's a lot there. So take a breath for a sec. Okay, I'll pause just for a moment and I'm going to check my watch. Okay, going well. I believe that we've come here to bring change. And I believe that we have limitations that are imposed upon us by the society which has been created over many years. And I believe those limitations are very human. I think they're at the lower edge of consciousness, and I think they're based on three things. I just want to call this as I see it. I don't expect all of you to come with me, but I know that this will resonate for some. I think we have systems and I think we have structures on this planet that are built under three limiting factors for humanity that we need to transcend. One is about separation, goes against oneness. One is about power, that we're all powerless as far as some are concerned, but we are more powerful than we can ever know. Greed and materialism is something that drives a lot of behavior on this planet, but you can't take it with you, as we've always said. So there's something about being able to transcend these three things through our systems. The systems that I feel that need to be transcended involve our financial systems. I've already told you that I'm a reformed banking executive. I got out of that corporate career 20 years ago. There was things happening in finance industries that didn't resonate with who I was becoming. And I got out. I believe a lot of our financial stuff is built on profit, and that money is whilst we might not see it as the root of all evil, as some would call it, it certainly holds humanity back, and it has aspects of separation, power, and greed in the systems that we have in place. Politics is all about separation. You know, in my own country, we have two main political parties. One gets into power, they call the other one the opposition. It's the exact opposite of oneness, that there must always be conflict. But I think humanity is ready to move beyond conflict, particularly in the political scale. You know, we talk about Eastern and Western philosophies. Politics separates us. I believe we need to come together in a way that transcends separation when we look at politics. And a lot of that's about power as well. Our medical system. And I know everyone's got a view of the medical system. In my book, I talk about how amazing it is that we can actually do a heart transplant for somebody. But I also talk about our heavy dependence upon pharmaceutical drugs and how that is not always the answer when it comes to alternative healths that are available. And some have been hidden. I favour a medical system that finds the best of allopathic medicine and alternative medicine. And that, again, embraces the oneness thing and doesn't do the separation. And then our educational systems. You know, the world of academia, which does a great way of helping people to understand knowledge. But why aren't we teaching our kids at school meditation? Why are we still teaching Newtonian physics in high school when we should be teaching quantum physics? Our educational systems are still built on the old way of learning, that we impart information, you must memorize it, repeat it in a test, and that's your ticket to success. I believe that we should have different learning systems that start to embrace something that looks a little bit more like, you know, Steiner's philosophies, Montessori, Maharishi schools. There are incredible aspects of education that are coming that start to transcend some of the things we teach in our tertiary institutions that prop up the medical, financial, and political systems. I think there's other places to go. I don't want to dwell on all of this because that's not why we came here. But we need to spot these things to say, how can we do this better? What can we do that builds a world full of light? What can we bring into our own energy that allows us to do what we came here to do? They talk about the light worker movement, but I think the time has come for the light leaders and the light teachers. And they're the ones that carve the paths for others to follow. We can all work with the light, but it's time for us to lead from the light. And I think a lot of the organisations who are pursuing consciousness have that greater goal in mind. And I believe that we're influenced by something far greater than ourselves in order to bring that light to humanity when we need it most. This planet has too many shadows, but we have light. It's limitless and endless, and that's who we are. Okay. All right. Let's take a breath. I suppose that's about me taking a breath. In a moment, we're going to do a little experiential. What if we can create the future that we want? What if we can reach into the future of that multiverse and we can harness the particular frequency that brings us incredible wisdom? All we have to do through our own intention is to set our radio dial. So what I'm going to suggest to you, and let me talk about experientials. They can be anything that you want them to be. You can get a message. You can have an experience. You might just relax. You might just choose to observe. You might want to sit back and just watch. You might want to not be part of it. All of that is absolutely perfect. And what happens to you during this next little while is as unique as the individuals that we all are. So you can participate in this to any extent that you would like to. We're going to create a very safe exploratory experience. Okay. We're going to talk to a future version of you that has some wisdom to share. But we're going to set it up very carefully through certain parameters I'm going to suggest to you that you become comfortable shortly, and you might need a pen and paper just to write down a few thoughts that may come to you. But one of the things that we've been exploring through what we call ultimate consciousness is we say, well, what's that going to be like? So we do this thing called +5. If you could have a conversation with the version of you from 5 years out, what would they want to offer you? Now, somebody once said to me, what if I'm no longer here in 5 years' time? What if I've crossed over to the other side? And I say to that person, well, you're going to get the best information of anybody, because you'll be able to have a beautiful message from your soul transmitted back across time and space. So however this emerges for you is perfect. Sometimes a version of you may turn up. Sometimes somebody else might step in and offer you a message, whatever it might be. But we're going to be very careful on how we set the radio dial. Okay. So this is the intention that we're creating. We're going to offer 5 years from now in linear time. If someone comes forward and they're further ahead, or not 5 years ahead, or they're 1 year ahead, that's okay. So we've got some, because time and space doesn't exist, remember. Okay, it's a linear construct for learning. So we're going to offer that up as 5 years, but it doesn't have to be. But this one's pretty set in our radio dial, has a higher vibration than now. So it's a version of you that has transcended, has evolved, has moved into a higher level of consciousness than what you have now. It's like they have something to offer, which is why they come. They have helped with the evolution of consciousness in their own unique way. That might just be through the expression of kindness. That might be having raised beautiful children or grandchildren. But they've done something that has helped with the evolution of consciousness. And they want to share wisdom that will inspire you. It might be one little message. It might be a couple of things that they offer you. It could be any parts of that. Okay. I'm going to ask that you keep these things to yourself. You can maybe discuss them a little bit later, or you can offer them up in the questions, because we will have time for questions in a while as well. Okay. And they love you so much that they'll transcend time and space to meet you. So please understand the frequency in which this is being created. This is a version of you that comes across linear time because they have something important to tell you, and they come because they love you. Okay, if you don't feel self-love today, and there's every chance that you will in the future, and that version of you is the one that's coming. Okay. So 5 years from now, roughly, not exactly, doesn't matter, but it has a higher vibration than now. They've helped with the evolution of consciousness in their own unique way. They want to share the wisdom that will inspire you. And I love you so much that they've come across time and space to meet you. Okay, now I'm going to stop my screen share because I want to be completely with you as we take this little journey together. And I'm going to ask that you become nice and comfortable, and that you allow yourself to just very simply, easily and naturally take a beautiful breath into that body. That is your temporary home. And just feel, sense, and experience an inkling of your magnificence. It's always been there, just beneath the surface. And you felt it emerge at times. And you know that it's there. And there's an aspect of you that knows you are magnificent beyond your knowing. And that you are so, so, so much more than this beautiful person you've been told that you are. So we're going to send an invitation out into the universe to meet that aspect of you from the future that loves you so much that they'll travel across time and space to meet you. That they have wisdom to share, that they're in that higher vibration. and they care so deeply and beautifully for you. So as you take a breath now and you allow yourself to just start to expand your consciousness just that little bit. And as you breathe out of that body, you breathe your awareness out into a universe that transcends time and space. And then you breathe that universe back in again. This beautiful cycle of your awareness going out into a universe and the universe coming back into your being blends you in a way to the all there is that allows you to move beyond time and space as we know it. And you start to drift out of that body, out of the room that you're in or the place that you are. You drift up and away into a beautiful place that transcends time and space. And as the layers of the human self fall gently away, it's like a natural state of being is free. As you continue to expand, you are pure consciousness, gently embracing your divine state of being, beyond all human knowing and imagination. And you are always this. And in this moment, as this is remembered, the gentle surrender into your magnificence is felt easily and naturally. Everything else falls gently away. You are a vibrational being in a universal symphony of light, offering your energy to all there is, bringing harmony and resonance to a life that will soon be forever changed. All this felt and experienced as our journey so naturally unfolds. And now allow yourself to get a sense of being outside of time and space. And you sense the company of another. You sense their vibration of wisdom, high vibration. Get a sense of the unconditional love that has brought them to you today. You start to feel that resonance of their wisdom as they come before you. And you greet them and you connect. And a beautiful conversation starts that is like no other you ever had before. It's gentle, loving, and powerful. And as this connection continues, that beautiful exchange of wisdom unfolds. And you take a few minutes to listen. That's it. You feel the loving resonance of what you experience. And of course, there's always an exchange in this higher vibration. And there can be gratitude for them coming across time and space to meet you, whoever they may be. A beautiful exchange from the wisdom that's been offered, gratitude offered in return. And as you sense that now, the universe responds to free will. If you choose to, you can arrange to meet again. Or you may have what you need for now. But just allow yourself to know the vibrational frequency of that who you've met, the experience that you've had. However it's unfolded for you is perfect. And know that wisdom, that frequency is always available. And as you get a sense now of this beautiful aspect of you, it's so expanded right now, starts to return to this human form that you chose. This human form that is so remarkable that you chose it ahead of 8 billion other options on this planet. This is the one you wanted to be. It's the home that you wanted to be for now. So come back to that place now. And as you allow yourself to drift effortlessly back into the human knowing of who you are, the door remains open as you'd like it to. And when you're ready, you can drift back into this place. Jot down some notes that you may like to, just little reminders. And come back into this space. That's it. Coming back now. Perhaps a little stretch, glass of water, whatever it might be. And just be back in the here and now. Back to the beautiful group that's assembled both there in the room and also across time and space on screen. Just be back with us now in our collective consciousness of who we are. Okay. So I'm going to ask that when the room is ready for me to continue back there, everybody's back and a little bit centered, not completely, don't have to be. Let me know when you're ready for me to continue with the next slide. I'll just get you to call it there locally in the room.
You can go ahead now.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's your experience. That can be whatever you want it to be. But let's come back to a couple of other slides and we'll wrap and we'll head into questions shortly. Okay. All right, that's your radio dial. Okay. So, where to from here? Well, where can you make a start? Remember, I talked before about robust experience. And I talked about personal experience, robust research and personal experience. I want to share with you 5 books that have made a big impression on me. Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. I took that book off a bookshelf in Borders Bookshop a few decades ago, and the world around me shifted. It was like an earthquake. It hit the building and almost fell over. That was the power of that book for me. And it helps us to understand where we go when we pass, the mapping of the spiritual realm. I know a lot of you have probably read that book, but for me, it's an absolute shifter. Gave that to my mother for Christmas one year. She broke down and told me about a near-death experience she had when I was 10 years old and had never told me. So this book opens doors like nothing else. Second one is The Holographic Universe by a guy called Michael Newton himself. When I started to explore the quantum, he recommended this book to me. Michael Talbot was a journalist. He was looking at the holographic nature of the universe. He quotes a lot of quantum physics in this book in a way that's actually explainable, because he's not a quantum physicist. He's a journalist that was doing research. It's a brilliant book. He wrote this book at 36 and then passed away at 37. So it's like once he'd written this book, his service to this planet was complete. So I recommend that book to you. Greg Braden, I've already mentioned Greg a couple of times in this presentation. His book, The Divine Matrix, his conscious keys of creation that he writes about, 20 or so of them in that book. It's a great understanding of who we are as part of an overall collective, and always an easy read, Greg Braden, and always full of wisdom. So that was a book that helped me to understand the infrastructure of the universe itself. Bruce Lipton, I've also mentioned, The Biology of Belief, a man who had to leave medical teaching at medical school because he no longer believed in what he was teaching. And he says that we're not victims of our genes. He talks about how we create the environment around us through our own belief systems. This is the intention. This is the stuff I mentioned earlier. Lynn spoke about it earlier as well. We create the world around us through how we see it. So if we could see it in this way of unlimited possibilities, what could we then create? A couple of times I've had hypnotherapy schools over the years, and I've always had this as one of my core texts. And this one, a book by Mary Rodwell. She talks about the awakening to our cosmic heritage. She talks about the children that she's working with families, those who have off-world memories, those who have connections to starseed networks. This book is a book of hope because it tells us that everything is going to change once the people who are incarnating onto this planet now, a lot of us have off-world traces. It's become quite a phenomenon at the Newton Institute as well, that we're seeing a lot more intergalactic type beings who are incarnating into human form. But this one's all about the kids. It's about the future of humanity. We listen to these children and we will find our future. And that too is a great book. Mary's based in Australia. I know her well. She and Howard and I presented at a conference a couple of years ago. I mentioned Howard's book already, The ETs Speak, Howard Beatty. So these are books that start to stretch you in new directions. If you haven't read these already, there's probably a few in the audience that have read all of them. So those are the ones that I recommend because they've been big changes for me along the way, helped me to understand what I was doing enough to be able to speak to you today. And then the personal experience. Well, there's lots of different practitioners, and you've got some wonderful ones there as well. Speak to Carol, speak to Smita, speak to the guys that are there at the conference because they have wonderful things to offer. Find a credible practitioner for listings. Michael Newton Institute lists people. Our Institute for Quantum Consciousness lists people as well. So, and word of mouth is great as well. If you've got some sort of a buddy, a consciousness buddy who says, I had a session with this person, it was great, go see them. A lot of the people in those two organisations, of course, work online as well these days. We've all had to go online. The universe made that a necessity and the work has gone global. So there you have it. Okay, quick info slide and then we'll head into questions. So I want to offer you 3 places you can go for more information. Institute for Quantum Consciousness, that's the website of the organisation that I founded to look at the overlap between science, spirituality, consciousness, if you like. On that website is different articles, different interviews, podcasts that I've done with people. There's a 9-stage journey called the Transcendence Adventure, which it's all free. It's artwork that was taken into an untouched rainforest and filmed as a journey program that goes through 9 different layers. I shot that and put it out there for free when the pandemic, the government response to the pandemic had everyone trapped at home and people were struggling a lot. I put that program out there and a lot of people used it. There's also Conversations for a New World about encapsulating the future for humanity across 5 different parameters that are mentioned in a book that I'll talk about in a minute. And you can actually host groups where you talk about the transcending new medical system. You can talk about how, different leadership functions happen around the world that bring oneness. So there's conversations there that can start a new world. All the materials are there for people to use in groups. This big one here, the Michael Newton Institute, Michael Newton's most recent book published by our institute is Wisdom of Souls. We also have a quarterly research journal, Stories of the Afterlife, which comes out every quarter, which I contribute to. But we have practitioners that are based around the world in 40 different countries and 20 different languages now. Michael's work has spread that far. And the last one here is just my personal website for the offerings that I make: Quantum Consciousness, Universal Consciousness. I work online as well. And those are the 2 books that I've published most recently. My colleague Kim Kane is there in the audience somewhere, and she has some of those books for you as well. If you want to have a chat to Kim, ask her about Holly's School as well, where she's done her hypnotherapy background. There's some great things. Kim, can you give the people a wave just so they know who you are, if you haven't met them already? Okay. Great. So those are 3 places that you can go. Again, with my own website, there's articles, there's interviews, all of that if you want to explore this. And I welcome contact with anyone anytime as well. Okay. All right. Back to mission control.
I was going to say thank you very much for a beautiful presentation. I know everyone in the room probably got something from that. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask? And if you would come up. Come on up. Yeah. Come on up. It'll be easier.
All right.
All right. Michael?
Yes,
Okay. Michael, Pete has a question for you.
Hi. I'm wondering if you've heard of an organization called the Society for Mind Matter Research. It was created by some physicists from Zurich. Harold Ottmansbacher is the president. He was a physicist at the ETH, the Swiss Technical Institute, and some Jungian analysts are involved. And they're doing a lot of research on a kind of false division between psyche and matter. And what you write about and what you talk about seems to really fit in with a lot of the work that they're doing. Most of it's beyond my capacity to comprehend, but what they're talking about now is kind of something they call a non-dual monism, where in our sort of ego world, that the sort of mind matter, it breaks down into the concepts of mind and matter, but beyond that there is no division or separation. And so again, you're doing a lot of research on it and seems to align with the work that you're doing. So I didn't know if you've heard of it.
I haven't, Michael, but I'd love for you to send me some information if you could.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I will.
Yeah, I'm a big Carl Jung fan. So.
Oh, great. Yeah, people here know I'm an analyst. So.
Oh, good. Okay. Please write me, and we'll talk some more.
Oh, wonderful. I would love to do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, for everybody, it's the Society of Mind Matter Research, and they put out an excellent journal. So, great. Thank you. Thank you again.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Michael. Do we have any other questions online or in person? We have a question from the audience. Amari and her Egyptian. Well,
yes. Thank you so much. I'm my Egyptian architect self today. I'm fascinated and intrigued by the data around the COVID-19 phenomenon, and appreciate some of the information you gave. I remember when I was in it thinking there has to be a bigger reason for this devastation and this pain. And at the time I thought, well, we got to change our ways. This is an opportunity for people to really step into a different way of being. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that from your own experience and your research. Thank you.
I'm happy to. You know, we wanted to look at that very carefully because if I look back at that now, I remember that time as being, and particularly in my own country, we were very much affected by lockdowns, which spiked anxiety and depression. Many of us had to close our physical clinics as well. The pressures on society were phenomenal. Many small businesses in different places closed during that period of time. I think that the alternative health industry was particularly affected. And we needed to find a way to move beyond that, because there was a lot of things in the media that we look back at now and don't make as much sense to us as perhaps what they did at the time when they were offered to us. And obviously I'm choosing my words in a very diplomatic way, because that was behind the research itself. We said, okay, well, there's all of this angst and everybody has an opinion, and doctors are saying this, some doctors are saying that, a lot of it's not matching up, what's really going on here. And a lot of us who were plugged into something more could see that there was something more to this than what appeared to be. So when I spoke to Pat O'Malley, when she was head of our research area originally at the Newton Institute, when we took this work on, we wanted to make sure we completely transcended the human condition in order to get the information that we did. We wanted to go straight to spirit and look back and then offer humanity the messages that we needed. So we didn't get anything about lockdowns, vaccination, medical system. We didn't get any of that on the ground stuff. We got something that was far more powerful. It's like we rose above all of those conversations that people were having, and we got something that was very pure. And I've given you a snippet of it, but the article was published in a couple of different places. And if you want to make contact, I'm happy to send you a copy of the Nexus magazine or the Humanistic Psychology one that was printed. What it boiled down to at the end of the day was we need to make a collective decision about whether we choose love or fear. Okay, always it was, it's love or hate, or it's courage or fear. And we always thought those were the sort of the dynamics of the constructs for the black and white pieces of that. But no, it was love or fear. And when we sat down and we looked at that, we understood why it was love or fear. Fear contracts, love expands. That's it. And the message out of that research was it's time for humanity to expand and expand through love. And there's nothing really about that period of time in Earth's history that was about love, apart from people looking after other people. And there were aspects of that from the circumstances that love had an opportunity to be shown. But for us, it was about how do we expand through this and come out the other side and move into a space of love. So that would be my summary, but I'm happy to share the article with you if you want to write to me.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the wonderful talk and also the references of the books that you suggested. I was wondering if you have any recommendation for a book for somebody who is a scientist or a physicist. Like, what would you recommend learning about quantum consciousness?
They're actually physicists themselves?
Yeah, but I'm a mathematician, so I was just wondering if somebody who was a scientist, can you recommend some book for on quantum consciousness?
I'd start with the holographic universe that I recommended on the screen there before. There is some pretty strong linkages back into quantum physics, Carl Pribham and other people like that who are well known. Even my quantum consciousness book, I do reference a fair bit of science. I have a deep respect for you as a mathematician, for somebody who struggled through maths at high school. That's fantastic. And what I love about some of the things that I shared today was the mathematics behind M theory makes sense. The mathematics behind, a lot of the stuff that, they did in the many worlds interpretation, the maths makes sense. Now, I haven't checked the maths myself. I just trust those guys. You might do a better job of checking the maths than me. But anything that you do that stretches the scientific part, a lot of people are pitching themselves talking about quantum physics, but stretching it towards consciousness. Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, all of those guys are doing that sort of stuff. But I'd recommend the holographic universe as a great place to start. Michael Talbot.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question?
I've got one. I'm online.
Hi there, Tom.
Thank you, Pete. That was a great presentation. I really appreciate it. I wonder how the quantum consciousness concept has been impacted or is being impacted by the work of Donald Hoffman, his case against reality, and the idea that consciousness itself is the primary substrate of reality, and that time, space, and matter are all just emergent properties of consciousness.
That echoes a good truth for me, Tom. I'm not familiar with his work. Has he written some books?
He wrote a wonderful book in 2019 called The Case Against Reality.
Okay.
And it actually is very consistent with he's a scientist, but it's very consistent with Hindu philosophy, with say Vajrayana Buddhism, where everything is spirit and everything else just emanates out of that. So it's I would think that it would be completely consistent with quantum consciousness, but I just wondered if there'd been any specific response to it. I guess there has not.
I haven't looked at his work, but I'm writing that down, and I'd be great.
Donald Hoffman,
yeah,
The Case Against Reality. It's really
okay.
Wonderful book.
Okay, I like the way that shapes up just from the small amount that you've told me. I mean, we all have those days when we're stuck in traffic and it's starting to annoy us, and we say, it's just an illusion. Right. It's just an illusion. It's just an illusion.
Right. And the idea is that there's one consciousness. Instead of trying to take everything in the universe that seems separate and make it one, the concept behind this is there's one consciousness.
Yeah.
We're just all part of it.
Yeah, there was a quantum physicist that said
it's within us instead of us being within it.
I like it. There was a quantum physicist, I've forgotten which one now, but he made a quote: "The more of this work we do, it looks like the universe is just one big thought."
Right.
So yeah, great. I'll have a look at that. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it.
Another question? I heard somebody. Okay, you have a question? Oh, one more question. Come on up.
Hi, Peter. Great talk.
Thank you.
I had a question on the quantum consciousness experience slide. There were 6 things mentioned, present consciousness, stored, parallel, alternate, eternal, and interdimensional.
Yep.
I want to understand the difference between parallel and alternate versus stored and eternal, if you can extrapolate further. Thank you.
So that was the difference between stored and eternal and parallel?
Parallel versus alternate.
Oh, parallel versus ultimate. Okay. Parallel we referred to as when we take on a different body. For example, if you think of that of past lives outside of time and space. Okay. Ultimate consciousness is a different construct that we've built that's not actually in that model, but that is similar to what we might have done today in the experiential. But we actually work with a client to set their radio dial to a version of them that comes from out of the multiverse that has for them what they most desire on the back of a certain decision or a project or wherever that may be. We find that them that has the answers, we bring them into the here and now, and we blend consciousness with that person to superimpose those frequencies from the future onto this person. So ultimate consciousness is a separate journey. Parallel is past lives outside time and space. And did you say eternal as well?
Eternal versus story.
Sorry, I can't hear you guys.
Eternal versus story.
Okay, so stored is the timeline that we're in now. And that is this linear construct, if you like, and what are the pieces within this particular timeline that offer us opportunity. Eternal is the soul essence that permeates all of it, all of our different expressions of consciousness in any of the different realms. If that confuses things further, you've got Kim there and she can show you those pieces in the book. So you can have a look as well.
Great. He said thumbs up. He's going to look at the book. Thank you so very much. Does anybody else have any other questions? Oh, let's give him a big round of applause.